Amy Winehouse of Frank, you know what? That's just a girl. Amy Winehouse of Back to Black, that's a star. And the result, right away, is someone you take notice of. Purely on a visual level, before she opens her mouth, you're like, what's up with that girl and her hair?
It's like her armor. I think in one interview, we did some on-air performance in LA for some radio thing. And I think the guy apologized for asking her so many questions about her hair, and she's just like, oh, I'd much prefer it if we just only talked about my hair.
After her startling U.S. debut at Joe's Pub in New York City, Amy released Back to Black in America on March 13, 2007, and she debuted higher on the U.S. charts than any other British female artist before her. At 23 years old, she'd become a global superstar, but her erratic behavior was a brewing storm that threatened to wreck everything she'd achieved. By early 2007, Amy Winehouse's second album, Back to Black, had made her an international star. But the 23-year-old's unruly and self-destructive behavior was casting a dark shadow over the music.
She's someone who became more known for the antics than for the music, and on one hand, it was something that everyone was sort of flocking to because they wanted someone who was sort of different from the prepackaged pop star, but then it just became kind of too much.
I didn't even have time to get drunk. I've only been about 15 minutes.
People know how rock stars are. They accept a certain amount of crazy behavior. But with Amy, you know, there were like an increasing number of high-profile appearances on TV where people were really starting to wonder, like, is this an act or is she really kind of this crazy?
She went on a show, which is sort of a light-hearted chat entertainment show in England, and she was due to sing Beat It with Charlotte Church, who's also a singer, at the end, and by the time it came to her performance, she was very, very worse for the wear, and Charlotte Church was having to stand next to her and prod her when she had to do her line, and her lines were very, very drunkenly delivered, and Charlotte Church looked absolutely horrified by this.
Her manager came out and said it was just because she has a hard time dealing with this sudden fame. And certainly, Amy herself, like, never was seeking this out.
Well, Amy is very alone in her sort of relationship with fame. She's mystified that so many people want to come and hear her sing live. She's mystified that the press have so much interest in her. She just doesn't understand it.
But an old relationship was cause for even more concern. In April of 2007, Amy made a disturbing announcement. Not only had she reconciled with her roguish ex-boyfriend Blake Fielder Civil, but they were engaged to be married.
Having been reunited, Amy and Blake very quickly and suddenly had a bit of a shotgun wedding in Miami. None of the parents were invited, and there was a lot of offense taken of that. But it was very much a sort of a rock and roll wedding.
Amy loves Blake. People around her feel like Blake has been this really terrible influence, that he's a user, that he is the one who got her using all these crazy drugs. But she does have this part of her where she's like, I just want to be a wife to Blake. You know, I just want to be married to him and have all these babies. You know, I just want to be a mom.
Amy's attachment to Fielder Civil was captured most painfully in a picture. Asked to grace the cover of Spin magazine in July 2007, Amy invited Blake to her session with legendary photographer Terry Richardson.
The Spin cover shoot is a pretty classic example of Amy and Blake against the world. You know, there's all these people around, makeup people, wardrobe people, photographers, assistants, and Terry Richardson's just snapping away. And one of the props that he'd brought with him was shards of a mirror. And, you know, at one point, Amy just picks up the shard and starts writing I love Blake on her torso, you know, scratching it out with like the edge of the mirror.
I wrote I love Blake on my tummy.
Her being sort of erratic and turned into her being this, like, you know, ready to crack at any second, self-mutilating lunatic.
Amy's summer of self-destruction hit rock bottom on August 7th, 2007. University College Hospital in London received an emergency patient suffering from an alleged overdose. It was Amy. The substances in her bloodstream were said to include heroin, cocaine, and ketamine, a horse tranquilizer.
My biggest fear is that she would die.
Some of the nursing staff even who saw it said it was the most frightening thing they'd ever seen in their lives, and they must have seen a lot. She she'd overdosed and was very, very close to death that night. After this, you know, obviously the two families and everybody sort of, you know, got involved because this had been a very public overdose. You know, it was all played out in the newspapers. And so they did actually go to a rehab clinic for a while just outside London in Essex.
She's showing me the pictures of her in rehab and saying, I didn't go to rehab. And her point basically was that she just, you know, did drugs the whole time. And there's pictures of her and Blake getting high and smoking joints, doing crack, pretty much everything.
And before long, they were back out again. And as if having had an overdose wasn't bad enough, this was where the wheels completely came off for Amy.
After a near-death overdose and another failed stint in rehab, Amy was in no condition to promote her new album. Plans for a U.S. tour were sacked, and in late August 2007, her relationship with Blake turned decidedly violent.
One night at the Sanderson Hotel, which is a very exclusive hotel in London. During the afternoon, there was a lot of commotion in her room, a lot of noises, you know, tables being broken. Then in the early hours of the evening, her and Blake literally staggered out through the front doors onto the street, both covered in cuts and bruises.
Many people assumed that Blake beat Amy, and that would be a fair assumption. However, she texted me wanting to let me know that that wasn't the case, and that Blake actually saved her, according to her, and helped her from not doing drugs anymore.
Then in November of 2007, Blake was arrested. Some hoped his incarceration would give Amy a reprieve from her rapidly dissolving personal life.
Blake was already up for an assault charge, but then he tried to pay off a witness, so he was sentenced to 27 months in prison and ended up going away.
I mean, without Blake in her life, it was the hope in a lot of people's eyes that this would be her salvation and this would be where she turned it around.
If he comes out and they go back to doing what they were doing before, she's going to have a serious health problem.
One of the things that really plagues Amy is that she has no self-esteem, and she feels she's incomplete without Blake.
She had to do a tour, a UK tour at this time, and, you know, with the benefit of hindsight, she should have cancelled it. But she was in a terrible state in all of the gigs. She was, you know, slagging off the audience, forgetting her lyrics, walking off stage halfway through. And the reason was that she was actually put it, you know, every time, I'm missing my Blakey. And at this point, people were turning up to her concerts. It was an electrified atmosphere. It's like, what are we going to get tonight? And in the end, she cancelled the tour towards the end because it became a circus.
Come, please.
Because her rise has coincided with the technological rise of a celebrity culture that affords people no privacy whatsoever. Every time she steps out of her house messed up, you know about it.
By late January 2008, video had surfaced allegedly showing Amy smoking crack cocaine. In response, she entered rehab for a third time. But Amy was about to perform in front of her biggest audience to date. The question on everyone's mind, would she self-destruct on live TV?
Give us a bit of room, please.
In 2007, 24-year-old Amy Winehouse was reeling from a string of setbacks. She'd reunited with boyfriend Blake Fielder Civil and suffered a severe bout with substance abuse. But 2008 began on a hopeful note. Her second album, Back to Black, had sold nearly 3 million copies worldwide, and Amy was nominated for 6 Grammy Awards. Feeling a new sense of promise, Amy was inspired to enter rehab once again.
Beginning of 2008, having been nominated for several Grammys, Amy went back to rehab, this time on her own, and there was very much a feeling that with these Grammys, this was a big, big moment in her career.
She got nominated for 6 awards, and the plan was for her to come to LA, and they wanted her to perform at the ceremony. They wanted the Dap Kings to perform with her. And we were all set to do it. Everything was all go ahead.
Because of a prior drug conviction in Norway, Amy was initially denied a visa to enter the U.S. for the Grammy Award ceremony.
It was very last minute, whether her visa was going to clear, whether she was going to be allowed to be here, whether she was going to be allowed to perform and work. So, you know, there was all this crazy energy around the moment.
As it happened at the last minute, she was given a reprieve, but it was too late to get her out there. So she actually had her own mini Grammys do in West London, live by satellite to America.
But Amy wasn't just planning to make an acceptance speech via satellite. She was booked to perform as well in a live worldwide broadcast before 17.5 million Grammy viewers. At 4 a.m. London time, the stage was set up at Riverside Studios. What would transpire on that stage was anyone's guess.
We didn't know if we were going to hear her sing that night. They'd set up the stage. Nobody knew. At that point, it was, is she capable of singing? Is she going to be able to keep it together just to get through one song? So it was, a wildly dramatic night.
From London to Los Angeles, the anticipation was palpable. Would Amy bring down the house or destroy her career?
It's that classic thing, you break him down enough and now you want the comeback. Like, she's gonna get her together enough to play the Grammys via satellite, and if she's able to get through it without causing an international incident, and people are gonna say, hey, she's back.
I was in the audience at the Staples Center at the Grammys. She wasn't there. She was still the best performance of the night. Knocked down. No question about it. Take no prisoners performance. And again, right on the edge. The whole room around her is vibrating. And it was a really amazing moment.
I think she stormed the world with her performance. Amid all this sort of negative press, I thought she came up and threw it back in their faces, to be perfectly honest.
It was a stunning worldwide performance. Fans were relieved and doubters silenced. Better still, Amy pulled off a minor Grammys miracle, winning 5 of the 6 awards for which she was nominated, including Record of the Year, Best New Artist, and Song of the Year for Rehab. Amy was back on top. In April, she entered the studio with producer Mark Ronson to cut a song for the forthcoming James Bond movie. But in Amy's tumultuous life, good news is always short-lived.
She was in contention to do the theme for Quantum of Solace.
They went to the country where they have this recording studio, and she's high and partying like she usually is. Mark Ronson was like, that's it, I'm leaving. And she was like, why are you being so uptight? I mean, that was basically what she told me.
We tried to work for a little bit, but I'm not sure if she's ready to work on music yet.
No matter what you say about what she's done to herself, I mean, you won't find a lot of talented.
In her final years, Amy Winehouse continued to battle substance abuse, a struggle that increasingly overshadowed her music. By July 2009, her tumultuous marriage to husband Blake Fielder Civil ended in divorce, a blow that was further compounded by Amy's erratic public behavior and run-ins with the law. Winehouse was arrested in late 2009 for assaulting the manager of a London theater. After pleading guilty to the resulting charges, the singer received a 2-year conditional discharge and was ordered to pay a fine. But in 2010, Winehouse seemed to have put her personal problems aside. Amid rumors of a 3rd album and a string of successful performances, she appeared to be poised for a comeback. Sadly, though, it was not to be the case. In May 2011, the singer entered rehab for undisclosed reasons, but left the facility after only 1 week. In June, Winehouse was booed off stage in Belgrade. Amy's downward spiral continued when she pulled out of a 12-date European tour, reportedly to sort herself out. Just weeks later, though, on July 23, 2011, tragedy struck when the 27-year-old was found dead in her London apartment. The cause of death was not immediately known. Shortly after news of the singer's death broke, fans gathered outside her home where they created a makeshift memorial. Amy Winehouse was one of her generation's most striking and original talents. And while the singer's self-destructive behavior often made a tragic ending seem inevitable, her deeply soulful music will endure.
Som ni vet allihopa så kommer det hit en delegation från Namibia. Fatima is from Iran.
Iraq.
Iraq. So maybe you